Do you ever walk by a car and you just kind of see your reflection in the mirror and you just check really quick and you're like, does my hair look okay? Or how about you have a meeting or you need to call somebody and you're rehearsing what you'd like to say over the phone. Maybe a bit more than you probably should be. How about when you're getting ready for the day, you're thinking what other people might say about your outfit, or maybe the certain way you did your hair. Maybe you're thinking about what somebody might say wrong and you're having imaginary arguments inside of your head. Well, if you do those things, you probably have two things that I'd like to know. Number one, you're very self-aware. Good job. Number two, you're wrong. There you go. And let me tell you why you're wrong. You physically, mentally, unless you were a superhuman, cannot actually guarantee what somebody else could be thinking, expecting, or needing from you, any of that. You have no idea what type of reactionary thought people have to you or a circumstance that you're in. And for that reason, I ask the question, do you live life imagining it from the third person point of view, or are you living it personally, mindfully, and present? Usually when somebody is caked with behaviors of checking and all of these rituals they do for external validation, whether it's rehearsing imaginary arguments, looking at the reflection, how they get ready for the day, how they take care of themselves, it always is for others. And that can be a pretty dangerous way to live, because what you're craving, which is connection, you're actually cutting that off from yourself, especially because the number one thing that's going to allow you to connect with others is bringing safety back into yourself by not giving yourself all these requirements in order for validation or acceptance to exist. If you think about it, all of the time that we spend trying to predict, control ourselves, all of that, if we aimed that towards truly taking care of ourselves, what kind of person would you actually be? What kind of person would you be if every time you stepped outside for a run, it wasn't about how many calories you burned or whether or not you're going to make the weight cut you want for the week? What would it be like to look in the mirror and simply just see yourself? And that's it. How would you take care of yourself if you could just be you in every single moment that you were in? Now, it sounds super woo-ha and also a lot easier said than done. It takes a lot of practice because we live in a world that actually operates under what we call it's normal, but it's really not healthy. And I think what we should be doing instead is just accepting that we would be living abnormally by not following this pattern of behavior. Society has primed us to ensure every photo we have is Instagrammable, that everything we share is being observed by maybe hundreds of people online, if not thousands. We are constantly judging as we scroll, good, bad, don't like it, love it. And it puts us in this operative mindset of always viewing things through the lens of judgment. Therefore, why wouldn't it be different when we turn to ourselves? And so living abnormally would mean that you'd be willing to go against the grain and potentially live a life that might even rub people the wrong way. There's a couple of rules that I break in particular that I know that in certain places that I exist in, people can have maybe a tough time reconciling their differences with. Here's 3. Number 1, that a businesswoman has to look and behave a certain way. The thing is I work on the floor. I enjoy mobility. I have a little meditation pad. I sleep on the floor too with the Japanese futon bed because it helps my back. I don't really care much for having to wear blazers or following that specific persona. You know what I'm talking about. And yet here I am, a woman who runs a business. Sometimes it can be a bit hard when I go to events or meet clients in person, and I'm not this imagined idea of what something should be. Yet I perform well, I love my job, and again, I run a business. Number 2, that success has to look a certain way. I'm sure we've all had those moments in our lives where we imagined a perfect vehicle we'd drive around town with once we get money, or maybe that was just me. There's all these little things in ways that we like to have success look like. And when success sometimes looks maybe smaller than what people would like or want when you're in a certain sphere of individuals, it can be really hard. I'm not interested in buying into a very capitalist world, and truthfully, my faith doesn't even prescribe to that either. I take nothing with me when I die. And so while I may have a successful business by society's terms, I don't maybe reflect that in the way that they'd like me to. And maybe that's a good thing. I think it's time that we have people who are leading and are not flaunting. And that's just important to me. And then number 3, a rule that I break is self-care is a method of control. A lot of the time, self-care is ritualistic online. It's these cold baths to raise your blah, blah, blah hormone and certain peptides to take. And maybe it's about running a certain amount of time or exercising a certain way, certain diets, supplements, anti-aging. All of these things masqueraded as self-care really are just ways that we like to control ourselves smaller and smaller. It is the huge way that we engage in behaviors that actually keep us from connecting with others by just being ourselves. Now, being ourselves doesn't mean not taking care of ourselves, but taking care of ourselves does not mean controlling ourselves. What would it look like for you to wake up and focus on how you want to give care to the person in the mirror rather than how you'd like to control them? You'll be abnormal, maybe, if you follow some of my rule breaking. Sometimes you have to live abnormally to get to where you want to go in life. And if you value connection with others, all those behaviors that you put between you and that other source, whether it's somebody online, somebody in person, ways you're trying to control how they see you, are all things that actually keep you even less connected with them, less appreciated for who you are, which is probably what you actually want to have. And the best way to do that is to truly be yourself. If normal looks like judging yourself and others harshly, keeping success at a distance, a certain lifestyle, a certain way of living, you gotta keep it far away to motivate yourself, right? Or if normal looks like external validation so that you can continue to control yourself, well, I suggest you try not to be normal at all and instead to live abnormally. and not really put any fluff into trying to figure out what other people are going to think about you, whether or not you check that mirror, change your outfit, do your eyeliner a certain way. There's no way to tell. So instead, just focus on caring for yourself. And I promise you'll be much more connected and happier as a result.